On a bitterly cold winter night, a 15-year-old black girl was biking through the icy streets, making deliveries and hoping to earn enough to afford one more night at the boarding house. As she rushed to complete her final order, she noticed an elderly man standing at a bus stop, shivering and looking lost. She hesitated, torn between duty and conscience. Finishing the delivery meant keeping her job, but leaving the old man there was wrong. In the end, her heart made the choice. She turned back to help him, not even imagining that the stranger in front of her was a billionaire whose gratitude would soon change her life. Before we begin, please write in the comments where you are watching from, and support us with a like and a subscribe. The wind was cutting like razors through the alleys of East Halton, a part of the city that looked forgotten even before the snow buried it. Trash cans rattled like bones, store windows were shuttered tight, and every few feet, the sharp hiss of wind scraped against brick. Jada gripped the handlebars of her rusted bike, her scarf pulled so high over her face it barely left her eyes visible. Her fingers were numb inside the hole-ridden gloves she wore, and every time she blinked, her lashes froze just a little more. It was the kind of cold that crept into your thoughts, made you forget where you were going and why. Except Jada never forgot. She had 2 jobs. After school, she cleaned the diner on 34th, and tonight she'd been delivering groceries for Mrs. Lynn, who always paid in exact change and leftovers. A bag of rice and 3 dumplings sat in Jada's backpack, still warm, pressing against her spine like a hug. She didn't notice the man at first. Then she heard it. A whisper carried on the storm. "Help!" Jada's bike skidded as she stopped. She looked back. The man hadn't moved much, just raised his hand a few inches before dropping it again. She knew better. This city was full of hustles. She'd been warned since she could remember. Don't stop. Don't speak. Don't get involved. But there was something about him. He looked old. Not homeless exactly. His shoes weren't torn. His coat was expensive. His hands, though trembling, had the careful stillness of someone used to control. Like this wasn't how he was supposed to die. Jada's breath clouded in front of her, and inside her chest, something warred between survival and something deeper. Something harder to explain. She wheeled the bike toward him anyway. "Sir?" she called, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "You okay?" The man blinked up at her. His eyes were wet from the cold, but clear. "Oh, I think I'm lost." For a moment, they just stared at each other, her breath fogging the air between them, his eyes blinking slow like he was trying to place where he was. The snow kept falling, quiet and cruel, icing the edges of his eyebrows and beard. He looked out of place in every way. Wool overcoat, leather gloves, the kind of scarf you don't buy. You inherit it. Jada leaned her bike against the pole and crouched, careful to keep a foot between them. "You got someone I can call? Family? Driver?" she asked, digging in her pocket for the cracked phone she barely used. The man shook his head slowly. "Phone died. Got turned around, thought I could walk to the station, but..." He trailed off, teeth starting to chatter. Jada glanced down the street. Not a cab in sight. No one was going to stop. Nobody ever did. "You can't stay out here," she muttered. Her fingers tingled with cold, her coat barely thick enough for nights like this. Still, she shrugged off her backpack, unzipped it, and pulled out a faded flannel blanket she'd taken from her mom's old closet. "Here. It's not much, but..." She draped it around his shoulders before he could protest. The man's hands touched hers briefly, and she felt how cold he really was. "I live about 10 minutes from here. You can warm up. Or, I can take you to the station." She paused, then added, "On my bike." His brow furrowed, like the absurdity of it knocked something loose. "You're going to give me a ride?" Jada cracked a tired smile. "Well, unless you got a snowplow in your pocket, I don't see many options." He gave a soft laugh, more exhale than joy, but it was real. "All right then," he said. "Lead the way." She helped him up slowly, one hand braced under his elbow. He was light, but tall, unsteady like his body was remembering how to move. She walked the bike beside them, keeping close in case he fell. When they reached the corner, She pointed at the battered back tire and padded seat. "It's not fancy," she said, "but it'll get us there." "You sure about this?" the man asked, one hand gripping the handlebars for balance. "No," she said, "but I'm not leaving you here." The man climbed onto the bike with effort, his legs shaky, breath short. Jada stood on the pedals, balanced against the weight. The snow came harder now, stinging her cheeks like needles, and the streets had turned to slush, slick and unpredictable. She didn't speak. There was too much noise in her head already. What if this was a mistake? What if he wasn't just some lost old man? Her fingers tightened around the grips. Every pump of her legs sent the bike forward, wheels slipping, tires whining under the load. But then she heard him behind her. "Your name?" he asked, his voice low in the cold wind. "Jada," she said, not looking back. "Yours?" He hesitated. "Walter." Silence stretched between them again, save for the creak of the bike and the wind howling down the narrow streets. "You live alone?" he asked after a while. She didn't answer at first. Then, "Yeah, with my mom. She's sick. I work most nights. You know how it is." She felt him shift slightly, like the weight of that answer hit him somewhere deeper than expected. "No one teaches you how strong you are until life demands it," Walter said softly. Jada blinked. Not because of the wind this time, but because she hadn't expected him to get it. Not like that. They passed rows of shuttered shops, the glow of neon signs flickering behind iced windows. A man sat on the steps of a liquor store, watching them like a ghost. A dog barked in the distance, and the clinking rhythm of broken wind chimes cut the silence. It was a scene no one would look twice at. A struggling girl on a busted bike. A bundled man clinging to her back like memory. But inside that moment, something rare was happening. A human decision. A quiet kind of resistance. Not against the cold, but against indifference. Jada's thighs burned by the time she turned the final corner. The wheels bucked beneath her, slipping against the thick patch of slush that pooled near the curb, but she kept pushing. Her teeth clenched. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts. Just a few more blocks. Walter hadn't spoken in minutes, but she could feel him behind her, holding on, lightly, respectfully, the way someone does when they know what it means to be a burden. She wondered if he knew how much every extra ounce cost her. Then, finally, the building came into view. It wasn't much, 2 stories of chipped brick and rusted balconies. The porch light flickered like it was on its last prayer. But to Jada, it was warmth. Shelter. A place where the cold stopped clawing at her bones. She slowed the bike, coasting to a stop in front of the steps. "This is it," she said, breathless. Walter climbed off carefully, his knees buckling for a second before he steadied himself on the railing. "You live here?" "Yeah." She locked the bike to the post and rubbed her hands together, trying to feel her fingers again. "You can come in for a bit. Warm up. Maybe call someone." Walter hesitated. He looked at the building, its cracked windows, the broken buzzer, the faded welcome mat with no welcome left in it. And then he looked at her. "You're giving up your heat, your space, for a stranger?" She gave a half shrug. "You're cold. You needed help. That's all I need to know." He smiled. Really smiled, the kind that softened the edges of his face, made the lines around his eyes look like something earned. "You remind me of someone I used to be," he said quietly. Jada didn't reply. She pushed the door open and led the way up the stairs. Her mother was asleep, the soft hum of an oxygen machine coming from the back room. Jada lowered her voice as she gestured toward the small couch by the heater. "Sit. I'll get you something warm." Walter looked around, at the peeling wallpaper, the frayed rug, the bookshelf half filled with library books and soup cans. He sat, slowly, without a word. And for the first time all night, Jada let herself feel the full weight of the cold leave her skin. The kettle whistled softly, steam curling into the air like a quiet promise. Jada poured the hot water into 2 mismatched mugs, one cracked at the rim, the other with a faded cartoon bear, and dropped in the last 2 tea bags she had. Chamomile and peppermint. Not exactly a gourmet mix, but it would do. She walked back into the living room. Walter hadn't moved much. He sat with his coat still on, hands spread toward the radiator like a man soaking in sunlight after months of darkness. She handed him the chamomile. "Thank you," he murmured, cradling the mug as if it were fragile gold. "You can take your coat off," Jada offered. "Heat's not great, but it's trying its best." He gave a small smile. "That's more than I can say for most people." She sat across from him on a milk crate-turned seat, blowing on her tea. "So, how'd you end up out there?" Walter looked into the steam as if the answer was hidden inside. "Tried to take a walk I shouldn't have. Thought I remembered my way. Clearly didn't. The cold, it confuses you. Makes every street look the same." "Didn't your family notice you were gone?" He paused. "My daughter's overseas. She checks in often, but not tonight. And the folks who usually hover around me, well, they were off the clock." He sipped the tea, then added, "Truth is, when you've got everything, sometimes you end up more alone than you think." Jada tilted her head. "You don't sound like most people I know." Walter chuckled. "That's 'cause most people you know are probably too busy surviving to get lost in rich man problems." She raised an eyebrow. "You rich?" He glanced up, met her gaze. "Let's just say, the world treats me differently when I'm not wearing snow on my face." That made her pause. Not because she believed him, but because something about the way he said it, without pride, without performance, made her believe him. From the back room, her mother coughed. Jada stood immediately. "I'll check on her," she said, already halfway down the hall. "Stay warm." Walter watched her disappear through the doorway, and in the quiet that followed, he took a slow breath, held the warm mug close, and whispered under his breath, "She has no idea." The apartment was small, but quiet in a way that felt sacred. As Walter sat there, tea cradled in his hands, he listened to the muffled sounds from the back bedroom. Jada's voice low, gentle, calming someone who was clearly in pain. He looked around. Every item in the room told a story. The duct-taped space heater working double duty beside the radiator. A stack of nursing books on the floor, bookmarked with scraps of mail. A photo on the wall, a younger Jada, all wide smile and curls, standing beside a tired-looking woman in a floral dress. He had spent decades in homes that didn't feel like this. Mansions, penthouses, hotel suites. Places where silence meant luxury. Here, silence meant fatigue, struggle, intimacy. When Jada returned, she moved slower, like the day had finally caught up to her. She sank back onto the crate, pulled the sleeves of her sweatshirt over her hands, and stared into her tea. "She has a hard time breathing when it gets this cold," she murmured. Walter nodded, not asking questions, just listening. Jada let out a long breath. "She used to be a teacher. Before the sickness. Before everything. I was supposed to go to college. But plans change." He studied her for a long second. "And still, you stopped for me." Jada gave a tired shrug. "Would have felt worse riding past." "That's rare," he said. "No. It's just that the people who still have hearts don't usually have the power to make noise." Walter looked at her like he was seeing something more, like her words pulled a thread inside him that had long gone untouched. "You've given me more than you know tonight," he said softly. "Not much," she replied, almost dismissively. Walter sipped the last of his tea. "Exactly what I needed." The clock ticked past midnight. Snow still fell outside, gentler now, like the city had exhaled. Jada stood and reached for her coat. "I'll take you to the station in the morning, if that's okay. You can sleep here. Couch is lumpy but warm." Walter set his empty mug down with care. "Thank you, Jada. Truly." She gave a small nod, yawning. "You're not going to turn into some creep while I sleep, right?" He laughed, deep and genuine. "Not tonight." She smiled as she disappeared down the hallway again, this time leaving the door cracked. And Walter sat alone for a while longer, staring out the window at the street below, a strange expression on his face. Like something in him had shifted. Like this girl had unknowingly done what no wealth, no private jet, no polished assistant ever could. She'd seen a man, not a name. The morning light broke reluctantly through thick clouds, casting a gray-blue tint across the frost-covered windows. Jada stirred on her mattress on the floor, the cold having crept in overnight. Her alarm didn't ring. She hadn't set it. She hadn't planned to go anywhere. Not when her mom needed her. Not when her body felt this heavy. She rubbed her eyes, sat up, and listened. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. She got up quickly and stepped into the living room. The couch was empty. Walter's coat was gone. Her heart dropped. Not because she feared him, but because she'd seen that look before. The one people get when they've had enough of being someone's burden. She checked the door. Locked. Nothing broken. Nothing taken. Only a folded piece of paper left on the milk crate where she'd sat the night before. She opened it with cautious fingers. Handwritten in perfect, almost old-fashioned script. Jada, there are moments in life that reset a man. Last night was mine. Thank you for not passing me by. This isn't the last you'll hear from me. Walter. She stared at it, confused. A part of her wondered if he'd made the whole thing up, the cold, the confusion, the helplessness. Maybe he wasn't lost. Maybe he just needed something to believe in again. She looked around the apartment. Still cold. Still small. Still hers. Still the same. She slipped the note into her pocket and went to check on her mom. Meanwhile, across the city, a black town car pulled into a gated driveway so long it curled like a private road. Walter stepped out. His driver, eyes wide, moved to help. Mr. Devlin, we've had half the city looking for you. Walter waved him off. I was exactly where I needed to be. The staff inside rushed to open doors, pour coffee, fetch warm towels. Walter ignored them all. He went straight to his office, locked the door, and sat in silence. Then he opened his laptop and started typing. 3 days passed. Jada hadn't expected anything. She knew better than to believe in fairy tales, especially the kind where the rich man you rescued magically changes your life. That stuff only happened in movies or to people born in zip codes that didn't start with poverty. Still, she found herself replaying it. The weight of him on the bike. The way he looked at the photo of her and her mom. That final smile, the kind people give when they see something they forgot they missed. Every time she pulled the note from her coat pocket, she read the same sentence over and over. There are moments in life that reset a man. What did that mean? Why had he left so early? And why did she care? That Thursday, after walking home from the late shift, she found a black car idling in front of her building. Her first instinct, turn around. She'd had too many run-ins with systems that didn't work for people like her. But the driver stepped out, dressed in a long coat, holding a white envelope. Miss Jada Thompson? She stiffened. Who's asking? I was sent by Mr. Walter Devlin. Her breath caught. That name, it sounded expensive. The man stepped forward, offering the envelope. He asked that you read this in private. And, he gestured to the car, that you come with me if you're willing. Jada took the envelope slowly, her hands trembling. She looked at her building, the cracked steps, the dark windows, the life she'd been fighting to hold together. Then she looked at the car, not with hope, but with caution. Tell him, she said, her voice calm. If this is a trick, I'm not someone who takes being played lightly. The man gave a small smile. Understood. Jada stepped into the car, letter unopened, her pulse thudding. Outside, the city rolled past like a blur. Inside, everything was changing, and she didn't even know it yet. The engine purred beneath her as the car glided through streets she'd never had reason to visit. Mansions loomed behind iron gates. Trees lined the road like guards. It felt like another world, the kind she only saw on TV or through the smudged glass of the diner's windows. She looked down at the envelope in her lap, cream-colored, thick, and embossed with the initials WD. Her thumb ran over the seal. She broke it. Inside, a single page, written in that same precise, elegant handwriting. Dear Jada, there are times when fate dresses up in the ordinary. I've spent years surrounded by people paid to care, to flatter, to protect. But kindness, not the kind that expects a return, but the kind that acts anyway, has become rare, almost extinct. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask. You didn't treat me like a man with value because of wealth. You treated me like a man who was cold, lost, and human. That kind of heart changes things. So I've decided to do something unusual. Something not driven by tax breaks or PR optics. Something personal. You'll find a set of keys enclosed. And an address. The home is yours. Fully paid. No tricks, no contracts. There's also a number. Call it when you're ready to enroll in school, any program, any dream. Consider it covered. You gave me warmth when I had none. Let me return it in kind. With respect, Walter Devlin. Jada stared at the letter, then reread it, then checked the envelope again, her fingers trembling now. And sure enough, there they were. A brass house key, a laminated address card, a business card with a single name and number. Her hand went to her mouth, covering a sound that wasn't quite a cry and wasn't quite a laugh. Just disbelief. The car turned, slowed, stopped. Outside the window was a modest but beautiful townhouse. Modern, clean, safe. The kind of place you dream about, but never dare to expect. The driver turned to her. Would you like to go in? Jada couldn't speak. She just nodded, clutching the key like it might vanish. The steps up to the townhouse felt taller than they were, as if each one carried the weight of every day Jada had gone without. Without security, without sleep, without the luxury of dreaming beyond next week. She reached the door and paused. Her fingers shook as she slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened with a soft click. And there it was. Light spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the warm wood floors and casting golden reflections across the open-plan living room. The kitchen sparkled, stainless steel appliances, untouched granite counters, cabinets that actually matched. A long hallway led toward what she guessed were bedrooms. But it wasn't the furniture or the space that hit her hardest. It was the silence. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but peaceful. She stepped inside slowly, like the floor might collapse beneath her. Her shoes squeaked faintly on the polished wood. Every breath felt too loud. She moved through the house in a daze. There was a room already set up with a desk, a laptop still wrapped in plastic, and a bookshelf lined with everything from nursing textbooks to poetry collections. Another room, so clearly intended for her mother, had a hospital bed, soft linens, and a window that looked out onto a small garden. It was like someone had taken inventory of her life and decided she deserved more. Jada sat down on the edge of the living room couch and stared at her hands. They were calloused, dry, proof of every shift, every unpaid bill. Every time she'd held this life together with tape and hope. She pulled out her phone. The business card had a name, Marina Whitlock, Devlin Foundation Education Liaison. Her thumb hovered over the number. But instead of calling, she opened her text app. She sent a message to her best friend, Kia. You remember that old man I told you about? Kia replied immediately. Yeah? Did he turn out to be crazy or rich? Jada stared at the screen. Then typed back, both, and he just changed everything. Later that night, Jada sat on the back porch of her new home, wrapped in the same flannel blanket she'd given Walter during the storm. The cold had eased, but inside her chest, a different storm lingered. She should have been celebrating, should have been calling everyone she knew, but instead, she sat still, watching the stars blink above the quiet garden like they had something to say. Because the truth was, this didn't erase the struggle, didn't rewind the nights she'd gone to bed hungry so her mom could eat, didn't make up for the teachers who'd written her off, the landlords who'd banged on doors for rent she didn't have, or the shame of walking into rooms and feeling like she didn't belong. But it did shift something. It meant, for the first time, she could breathe without counting the cost. Behind her, the sliding door opened. Her mother, bundled in a new robe and leaning on a walker from the bedroom, stood with sleepy eyes and a slow smile. This house, her voice cracked softly, is it real? Jada stood quickly, wrapped an arm around her. Yeah, Mama. It's real. Is it yours? Jada hesitated, then smiled. Ours. They sat together on the porch, silence folding over them like a blanket. After a while, her mother whispered, What did you do, baby? Jada laughed once. Not bitter, not disbelieving. Something small, she said. I just stopped for someone when no one else would. The following week, Jada received a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, burned too many times by bill collectors and fake job promises. But something told her to press accept. Miss Thompson, the voice was warm, professional, curious. This is Lauren James, producer with WBR News. We recently heard about your story from a very credible source. Jada froze. Sorry, who? Mr. Devlin's office shared your name. With your permission, we'd like to feature you in a short profile about community kindness. What it means when everyday people do extraordinary things. I'm not extraordinary, Jada said quickly. Exactly why people need to hear from you. 2 days later, she sat in a softly lit studio, camera lights glowing warm against her cheeks. A stylist had offered her a wardrobe, but Jada chose her own clothes. Clean jeans, a mustard sweater, and her late dad's watch, still ticking after all these years. The interviewer leaned forward. So you gave your only blanket to a stranger during a snowstorm, even though you barely had anything yourself. Why? Jada hesitated, choosing her words slowly. I didn't think about it like that. I saw someone hurting, and I just knew what it felt like to be invisible. I couldn't ignore that. You didn't know he was a billionaire? She shook her head. Didn't matter if he was broke or not. The cold doesn't care what's in your bank account. The interviewer smiled softly. What has this experience taught you? Jada looked directly at the camera, her voice quiet but steady. That kindness doesn't need permission. And that sometimes the smallest act can echo in someone's life louder than you ever imagined. The interview aired the next night. It went viral within 24 hours. But Jada didn't watch it. She was too busy helping her mom settle into her new routine, flipping through college program brochures, and replying to emails from strangers around the world. Some wanted to donate. Others just wanted to say thank you. One read, "My daughter saw your interview and asked if kindness is always worth it. I told her, because of you, yes." Weeks passed, and Jada's life continued shifting, quietly, but profoundly. The Devlin Foundation paid her tuition in full. She chose a program in community health care, part-time for now, so she could still care for her mom. Every class felt like reclaiming a dream she'd shelved for so long. It had started to collect dust. She rode the bus to campus most mornings, earbuds in, backpack slung over one shoulder. No one knew who she was there. No one whispered about viral interviews or wealthy benefactors. She liked it that way. It gave her room to become, not a headline, but a woman in motion. One day, after a lecture on medical advocacy, her professor lingered after class. "Miss Thompson," he said, adjusting his glasses. "I read about you. I didn't want to mention it earlier. I figured you get enough of that." Jada nodded slowly, unsure where he was going. He smiled. "But I'm glad you're here. This field, it needs people like you. Not because of what you did, but because of how you did it." That night, she walked home, the sky blushing gold and violet. Leaves scraped the sidewalk in little whispers. The cold was returning, creeping into the season again. As she reached her front steps, she saw a woman crouched near the porch, hunched, coat wrapped tight, holding a small child in her lap. Jada stopped, remembered. The snow, the silence, the decision. She stepped forward. "Are you okay?" she asked. The woman startled, eyes wide, tired. "I didn't know where else to go. The shelter's full." Jada nodded. "Come inside," she said softly. "Just for a bit. We'll figure it out." The woman hesitated. "You don't even know me," she whispered. Jada smiled gently, pushing the door open. "Doesn't matter." Inside, the child clung to the woman's coat, shivering despite the layers. Jada moved instinctively, grabbing one of the fleece throws from the couch, flicking on the heater, setting a kettle to boil like muscle memory. She didn't ask questions at first, just listened. The woman's name was Keisha. She'd lost her job 2 months ago, then her apartment. The shelters were overrun, the streets too cold. She'd been riding buses at night just to stay warm until they stopped her at the end of the line. Jada handed her a mug of tea, soft-eyed but steady. "You don't owe me your story. Not tonight." You just need warmth. Keisha's mouth quivered as she held the cup. Why are you doing this? Jada paused, then smiled. Because someone did it for me. After she got them settled in the spare room, Jada stepped onto the porch again. The stars blinked overhead, just like they had weeks ago. She pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. Walter Devlin. She hadn't called him since the house. But tonight, she tapped his number. He answered on the first ring. Jada. His voice still carried that quiet gravity, like a piano chord held just long enough to feel. I let someone stay here tonight, she said. A woman. Her kid. They had nowhere to go. She heard him smile. I'm not surprised. I guess she hesitated. I understand now. How one moment can change everything. Yes, Walter said. But it's not just the moment. It's the person who chooses what to do with it. Jada looked back at the glow inside the house, where strangers were finally warm. Thank you, she whispered. No, he replied. Thank you. The next morning, Keisha made breakfast without asking, scrambled eggs and toast from Jada's fridge, a quiet act of gratitude. Her son, Malik, played on the carpet with a handful of pencils, pretending they were race cars. Jada sipped her tea and watched them, something gentle tugging in her chest. Not pity, not even pride, just recognition. This was what her mother used to say. We don't need to change the world. Just touch it where we can. Later that week, Jada visited her old block. Same cracked sidewalks. Same cold breeze slicing between buildings. She parked her new bike. Yes, an upgrade, finally, and walked past the alley where she'd first found Walter hunched beneath the storm. It looked ordinary again. Small. But she knew better now. Some places are portals. Not because they're magical, but because they demand a choice, and the one you make becomes a doorway. She kneeled down, pulled a sharper from her pocket, and on the base of the old telephone pole, she wrote, Kindness lives here. Leave some. Take some. She capped the pen, stood, and smiled. A few days later, she received a package in the mail. No note. No sender name. Just a small, glass-encased snow globe. Inside, a tiny gold bicycle and a miniature bench. The kind you might find on a frozen street. The kind where someone might wait to be seen. Winter passed. Not all at once, but slowly. Snow melting into puddles, the sky softening from gray to pale gold. Jada's life settled into something new. Not perfect, but steady. Her mother's health stabilized with better care. Keisha and Malik stayed for 3 weeks, then moved into a place of their own, helped by a quiet donation from the Devlin Foundation. Jada never asked. Walter never mentioned it. Some things didn't need to be said. School was hard, but Jada loved it. She'd found her rhythm again, found purpose, and more than anything, she'd found a kind of hope that wasn't just survival. It was direction. One night, she sat at her desk, flipping through anatomy flashcards, when her phone buzzed. Message from Walter Devlin. Finished the letter. Publishing it in the Times next week. I've asked them to title it, The Night I Got Lost and Found. You're not named, but you are there. In every word. Hope that's okay. Jada typed back. As long as the heater was on when you wrote it. Wouldn't want you catching another chill. A beat. Then, you still have the blanket? Her reply came instantly. Always. Outside, a new snow had begun to fall. But this time, it felt different. Not something to be feared or endured. Just the quiet reminder of a single night. When a girl with nothing chose to give anyway. And in doing so, lit a fire that would never go out. One act of kindness doesn't just change a moment. It changes the map. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.